Learning not to retaliate. We have already discussed the many visible and invisible faults of anger, but how can we stop wanting to retaliate when someone harms us? The best way to overcome our instinctive desire to retaliate is to combine patient acceptance with compassion. When someone harms us, we should think not only, he is hurting me only because he is deluded, but also he is hurting himself too. Through training our mind to see things in this way, compassion will spontaneously arise and all impulses towards anger and retaliation will subside. The ways in which people bring harm to themselves are numerous and varied. In their search for sexual partners, wealth or social position, some people become so obsessed that they deprive themselves of food, almost starving themselves to death. Overcome by greed or anger, people even murder their parents, destroying any hope for a happy life for themselves in the process. When we look around us or read the newspapers, we can see innumerable examples of how through their delusions people inflict untold suffering upon themselves. Delusions are completely merciless and benefit no one, least of all the people who fall under their control. When we think of the immediate and future harm their delusions inflict upon these people, we can better understand why they often harm us as well. If we contemplate this deeply, not only shall we overcome the wish to retaliate, but we shall also be able to generate compassion for those who harm us. Under the influence of anger, a person who normally cherishes himself more than anything else in the world is even capable of committing suicide. If the force of his delusions can drive him to such desperate measures, we can certainly see how it can cause him to inflict pain on others. Anger can so totally rob a person of his or her freedom of action that it is unreasonable for us to express hostility towards anyone under its sway. If we cannot generate compassion for such an unfortunate person, at the very least we should try to refrain from getting angry with him. The capacity to remain completely unruffled in situations of great provocation and to feel genuine compassion for those who are deliberately trying to harm us is a sign of high spiritual realizations and the result of a great deal of mental preparation. It is unrealistic to expect that we can immediately be like this, but if we use every opportunity that arises in our daily life to train our mind in the following methods for controlling our anger, our patience will gradually improve. Occasionally, of course, our old habits of anger will get the better of us, but we should not become discouraged by this. If we persevere little by little, we shall certainly gain control over our anger. Finally, we shall reach the point where we no longer need to make an effort not to get angry. Anger will simply no longer be a natural response to hardship or provocation. The first thing we need to do is to remember at all times that anger is everyone's principal enemy. Anger is the friend of no one. Our anger never helps us, and another person's anger never helps them. All anger ever does is destroy our own and others' virtues and bring nothing but unhappiness. One of the effects of acting out of anger is that in the future, whether we are reborn as a human being or otherwise, our body will be ugly. There are certain people and animals who instinctively arouse fear and loathing in others. Being reborn with such a repulsive form, as well as being disliked by others and having a temperament that is quick to anger, are all karmic results of an angry mind. On the other hand, an attractive body and a pleasing appearance are the karmic results of the practice of patience. Having recognized anger as our main enemy, we should then make a strong decision not to allow it to arise. By remembering this decision in our daily life, we should stop ourselves getting angry. This might sound easier said than done, but if we now make a firm decision not to get angry for the rest of the day, or at least until the next mealtime, the chances are that we shall succeed. Then if we can succeed for 1 day, we can succeed for 2 days, then 3 days, then a week, and so on for the rest of our life. Abandoning all our anger is a big job, but if we take it 1 step at a time, it is not so difficult, and gradually the tendencies of anger in our mind will become weaker and weaker. When we are harmed by another person, we should examine whether it is his or her essential nature to be harmful, or whether this is just a temporary fault. If it were true that being harmful was the very nature of this person, there really would be no reason to become angry with him. We do not blame fire when we are burned by it, because we know that it is the very nature of fire to burn. In the same way, if it is this person's very nature to be harmful, then there is nothing he can do about it, and so there is no point in being angry with him. On the other hand, if the harmfulness of our aggressor is only a temporary fault, arising in response to changing circumstances, there is also no reason for us to become angry with him. When too much rain falls from the sky, we do not become angry with the sky, because we realize that the rain is not part of its essential nature. Rain falls from the sky only as the result of temporary circumstances, such as temperature, humidity, and air pressure. Therefore, if the harmfulness of our aggressor is not part of his essential nature, whose fault is it that he harms us? It is the fault of his delusion. Let us imagine that an angry man picks up a stick and hits us with it. Surely it is right to get angry with this man. After all, he has harmed us. Now suppose a friend tries to restrain us by saying, "Don't get angry with the man, get angry with the stick. It is the stick that was the immediate cause of your pain." It is unlikely that such an argument would convince us. We would almost certainly retort, "The stick didn't hit me by itself. Without the man who wielded it, it would have had no power to hurt me. It's the man I should be angry with." If this line of reasoning keeps us from getting angry at the stick, we should apply it to the man as well. The man was manipulated by his anger in exactly the same way that the stick was manipulated by the man. With scarcely any control over his mind, he was at the mercy of his delusions. Therefore, if being harmed is going to provoke anger in us at all, we should direct our wrath against the actual cause of our pain, the delusion of anger itself. Wrath directed at a person's delusions, once we have clearly differentiated the person from his or her delusions and recognized the person as a victim of his delusions, is not actual anger, but a forceful form of compassion. Our wish is to protect the person from his inner enemy of anger, and we use whatever means available to us, whether gentle or forceful, to free him from this delusion. It is important to understand that when we practice the patience of not retaliating, we are mainly concerned with our own internal, mental reaction to experiences of pain and discomfort. No suggestion is being made that we should passively let ourselves be beaten or harmed merely for the sake of practicing patience. If there is a way for us to prevent someone from hurting both us and himself, then certainly we should do so. However, the question here is, what should I do with my mind once I have already been harmed? The entire practice of patience, and indeed of Buddha's teachings as a whole, is to provide protection for the mind. Ultimately, it is our mind that determines whether we are happy or miserable. Another powerful method for overcoming anger and the wish to retaliate is to see all undesirable situations as a reflection of our own faults and shortcomings.